On a freezing winter night, when most of the city had already gone silent, a small, nearly forgotten train station became the starting point of a story that would later inspire millions. There were no cameras, no reporters, and no signs that history was about to be made. Just cold wind, flickering lights, and two strangers whose lives were about to change forever. According to local accounts, the temperature had dropped to dangerous levels that night. Trains were delayed due to heavy snowfall, and the station was almost empty. That was when a well-known millionaire cowboy, returning from a long business trip, noticed something unusual near the far end of the platform. A young woman sat alone on a metal bench, her hands trembling, her thin jacket offering little protection against the freezing air. She wasn't asking for help. She wasn't crying. She was simply trying to survive the cold. That woman was a nurse. A chance encounter no one expected. The cowboy, known across the region for his massive ranches, cattle empire, and quiet lifestyle, had every reason to ignore what he saw. He was wealthy, powerful, and used to moving through life without interference. But something about that moment stopped him. Witnesses later recalled seeing him pause, look back, and walk toward the bench. He asked her a simple question. "Are you okay?" The nurse looked up, surprised. She had just finished a double shift at a rural hospital, where staff shortages were common and exhaustion was routine. She had missed her last train home due to delays and had been waiting for hours, hoping another train would arrive. It never did. With temperatures dropping fast, the situation had become dangerous. From concern to compassion, the cowboy didn't offer money. He didn't make a grand gesture. Instead, he offered his coat and suggested they move inside the station office, where it was slightly warmer. Security footage later confirmed that he stayed with her, talking quietly as the hours passed. They spoke about ordinary things at first: work, family, and the strange turns life sometimes takes. The nurse shared stories from the hospital: long nights, critical patients, and moments when hope felt painfully fragile. The cowboy listened. For someone who owned thousands of acres of land and employed hundreds of workers, listening came naturally. But that night, it meant something different. Two very different worlds. Their lives could not have been more different. He had grown up around horses, open land, and responsibility placed on his shoulders at a young age. Wealth came later, built through discipline and relentless work. She had chosen nursing out of compassion, driven by a desire to help people at their weakest moments. Her world revolved around hospital corridors, alarms, and quiet prayers whispered behind closed doors. Yet, sitting in that cold station, those differences didn't matter. What mattered was warmth, human connection, and the shared understanding that life doesn't always go as planned. A night that refused to end. As the night stretched on, it became clear that no more trains would arrive until morning. The cowboy arranged safe transport for the nurse and ensured she had a place to rest. He refused to leave until he knew she was truly safe. Before parting ways, they exchanged names. Neither expected to see the other again. But life had other plans. When fate intervenes again, weeks later, their paths crossed once more, this time at a small community event supporting rural healthcare. The cowboy had donated anonymously, while the nurse attended as part of her hospital's outreach team. Recognition came instantly. What followed was not a dramatic reunion, but a quiet smile and an unspoken understanding. That night had mattered. They began talking more often. Coffee turned into conversations. Conversations turned into something deeper. Love away from the spotlight. Despite his wealth and her demanding career, they kept their relationship private. There were no headlines, no public statements, and no social media announcements. Friends later said this was intentional. They wanted something real, something untouched by expectations. Over time, the cowboy gained a new perspective on healthcare challenges in rural areas. The nurse, in turn, saw a side of wealth that was thoughtful, grounded, and purposeful. They didn't change each other. They strengthened each other. A story the public eventually discovered. The story might have remained private forever if not for one detail. Months later, local journalists uncovered a series of anonymous donations funding emergency shelters near train stations, support programs for night shift nurses, free transportation services during extreme weather. When records traced the funding back to the Cowboys' foundations, and the programs aligned closely with the nurses' work, the connection became impossible to ignore. Public interest exploded. Love found in the cold. Media outlets across the country began referring to it as love found in the cold. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was human. Soon after, it was confirmed. The millionaire cowboy and the nurse had quietly married. There was no extravagant ceremony. No celebrity guest list. Just close family, close friends, and a shared promise to keep doing good, together. Why their love story made history. This wasn't history made through fame or fortune. It was history made through impact. Together, they expanded healthcare access in underserved areas. They funded training programs for nurses and built warming shelters for stranded travelers. Experts and commentators pointed out something rare. This was a story where wealth followed compassion, not the other way around. A reminder the world needed. In a time when headlines are filled with division and noise, this story reminded people of something simple. Sometimes, history begins with one question. Are you okay? What started on a freezing train platform became a symbol of kindness, responsibility, and love that quietly changed lives. And that is why, without speeches, without slogans, and without seeking attention, their love story made history.